I spent 7 years working for my parents' grocery store every weekend, every holiday, every summer. No paycheck, no allowance, just promises. One day, this will all be yours, they'd say. I believed them. I dropped out of college thinking I was building my future. But on my 21st birthday, they sold the store without a word and gave me nothing. That's when I realized family loyalty meant nothing to them. So I made a new promise, not to them, but to myself. And this time, I kept it. My name is Ben. And for most of my life, I believed I was being groomed to inherit something special, something built by blood, sweat, and sacrifice. My parents owned a small family-run grocery store in a working-class neighborhood. It wasn't flashy or luxurious, but it was steady. Every local knew us. Customers called my mom Miss Kathy and my dad Mr. Joe. To the outside world, we were the picture of a hard-working American family, building a future, one can of beans, and gallon of milk at a time. But behind those smiles and cheerful greetings, there was a system one that relied heavily on me. I started helping out at the store when I was just 13. At first, it was simple stuff: stocking shelves, bagging groceries, sweeping the floor. I didn't mind. I thought it was kind of cool, honestly. I felt important, useful. But as I got older, the expectations grew. By the time I was 16, I was doing inventory managing the cash register, helping with orders, and even training new hires. And still not a dime. No paycheck, no tips, not even gas money. When I asked about it, they'd always smile and say, "We're a family. Families don't clock in and out. One day, this will all be yours." That sentence became a mantra in our household. One day, this will all be yours. It was like a sacred promise, a future written in stone. Every time I brought up getting a part-time job elsewhere or doing something different with my summers, my parents would shut it down immediately. "Why would you go flip burgers when you're learning how to run a real business?" my dad would ask. "This is your inheritance," my mom would remind me. "We're teaching you how to be your own boss." And I bought into it, completely. I watched my friends get summer jobs, internships, college experiences, and I stayed behind the counter, believing I was on a different kind of path, the path of a legacy. When college applications came around, I applied half-heartedly. I got into a decent state school with a partial scholarship, but my parents were hesitant. "College is expensive," they said. "You don't need a degree to run a store," they added. "This store will be yours by the time you're 25. Why waste time and money?" So I deferred my enrollment and kept working. I missed out on parties, road trips, spring breaks. While other people my age were learning who they were, I was learning how to do payroll. I kept telling myself that all this sacrifice would pay off, that I was investing in my future. And to be fair, there were moments it felt real. Customers would say things like, "Ben, you're the heart of this place." My parents would introduce me as the future owner. I'd see the pride in their eyes when I handled a difficult supplier or negotiated a better deal. I thought I was earning not just their trust, but my rightful place. But looking back now, I realize there was always something off. There was no paperwork with my name on it, no conversations about transition plans, no legal documents or financial transparency, just vague promises. I should have asked more questions. I should have insisted on some clarity. But I was a teenager, then a young adult raised to believe that loyalty was more important than contracts. That family came first, so I stayed. From 13 to 20, 7 years of unpaid labor, 7 years of missing life experiences, 7 years of building someone else's dream. And yet, despite everything, I never doubted them. Not once. Because why would my own parents lie to me? Everything started to shift right before my 21st birthday. I remember that day so clearly. Not because something dramatic happened, but because nothing did. No celebration, no happy birthday sign in the store window like they used to do when I was a kid. Just business as usual. We had a rush that morning, and I ran the register solo while my parents were in the back handling paperwork. That phrase, handling paperwork, started coming up more and more. My parents began taking more private meetings, often behind closed doors or off-site. I'd ask what was going on, and they'd brush it off with vague answers. Just routine stuff, my dad said. Legal things, my mom would add. Don't worry about it. But I did worry. Something felt different. I started noticing small signs. Vendors I'd never worked with before were suddenly making deliveries. Our accountant stopped showing up, the one I used to sit with every month to go over invoices and books. I was no longer part of those meetings. When I asked why, my mom would smile uncomfortably and say, "Ben, you don't need to stress over this stuff. Let us handle it for now." That "for now" made me uneasy. I finally confronted them one Sunday evening, after we closed the store. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the empty aisles. I stood by the front counter, heart pounding. "Are you guys planning something?" I asked. "Something with the business?" They exchanged a glance, that kind of silent communication parents have. Then my dad stepped forward. "Ben," he said, "we've been talking to someone about a possible partnership." "Partnership," I repeated. "With who? Why?" He hesitated. My mom jumped in. "It's just talks. Nothing's final. It might help us scale back a bit. Retire early. Maybe travel more. You'd still be involved." Involved. How I cut in. "You told me this store would be mine, that I was next in line." They looked at each other again, then back at me, and in that moment, I realized something chilling. They weren't looking at me like their son. They were looking at me like a loose end. The next week, I arrived at the store and noticed the locks had been changed. My key didn't work. Confused and panicked, I banged on the door until someone, a stranger, opened it. "Can I help you?" he asked. I work here," I stammered. "This is my family's store." "Oh," he said casually. "You must be Ben. I just bought the place." My heart dropped. I don't remember exactly what I said or did after that. I think I just walked away numb. My legs felt like they were moving underwater. I called my parents over and over until finally they answered. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, barely holding it together. "You sold the store." They were quiet. Then my dad said, "We didn't want to hurt you, Ben, but the offer was too good to pass up. No warning, no heads up, no share. After everything I gave—" "You didn't give anything," my mom interrupted sharply. "You lived here. You ate our food. You slept under our roof. Working in the store was part of being in the family." My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So the 7 years I spent building this place, learning the business, giving up school friends. My life, that meant nothing. "We appreciate it," my dad said, sounding more tired than guilty. "But the store was never legally yours, Ben. It was always ours to sell." And just like that, every promise, every sacrifice, every future plan I had built in my head crumbled. I wasn't angry yet. I was stunned, hollow. It felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I went home, not to their house, because I couldn't bear to see them, but to a friend's apartment where I crashed on the couch for weeks. I had no job, no degree, no money, nothing but betrayal. I kept going over every conversation, every moment I had trusted them. How did I not see it? How could they look me in the eye for years, lie straight to my face, and smile while doing it? Worse than losing the store was losing the belief that my parents were on my side, that they cared about me more than a check. I started falling into a deep depression. I'd stay up all night scrolling through job listings, none of which I qualified for. Employers wanted college degrees, years of real-world experience, and here I was, 21 years old, with nothing on paper but unpaid labor in a store that no longer existed. Friends tried to be supportive, but most didn't understand. "Why didn't you get it in writing?" one asked. "You should have protected yourself," another said. As if I had gone into a contract negotiation with my own parents. The shame was unbearable, but somewhere in that darkness, something inside me sparked. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was survival instinct. Maybe it was just the tiniest flicker of self-respect. I realized if I stayed stuck in the pain, I'd never move forward. And if I wanted justice, real justice, I'd have to create it myself. I spent the next few weeks drifting through life like a ghost. My body went through the motions, eating, sleeping, pretending to job hunt. But my mind was stuck on repeat. Over and over, I replayed what had happened. The betrayal, the lies, the years I could never get back. But slowly, the numbness gave way to something hotter, something sharper. Rage. It burned under my skin, fueled by every memory of my parents telling me, "One day, this will all be yours." It wasn't just that they sold the store, they stole my future. They used me, groomed me into a free worker, made me believe in a dream they never intended to deliver. That kind of betrayal doesn't fade. It festers. But I wasn't going to let it eat me alive. I was done being a victim. One night, I stayed up until dawn, researching business licenses, online education, e-commerce models, and how small retailers were shifting to digital platforms. I didn't have a college degree, but I had experienced real hands-on knowledge. I knew how to run a grocery store, manage suppliers, work with customers, read markets. I'd been doing it since I was a teenager. They thought they took everything from me, but they didn't take what mattered most, my know-how. And now I had something. They didn't the hunger to fight. Within 2 weeks, I enrolled in a free online business course. I devoured videos on digital marketing, pricing strategy, logistics. I watched TED Talks, read case studies, and followed startup founders on Twitter. I worked 12-hour days, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted it. Meanwhile, I picked up a part-time job doing deliveries for a local bakery. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills while I plotted my comeback. And being on the road gave me time to think about systems, about customer pain points, about the holes in the traditional grocery model. That's when the idea hit me. What if I built a modern grocery business, one that didn't rely on foot traffic and old-school operations like my parents' store did? What if I created something lean, fast, responsive, tailored for busy people who wanted good service and better prices? I sketched out a plan for a digital-first grocery store, app-based ordering same-day delivery, curated local products, competitive prices. A place that would feel like your neighborhood store, but smarter, more personal, efficient. But I needed funding. I didn't have savings. I had no investors. Just a mountain of frustration and a dream. So I got scrappy. I started flipping secondhand electronics on Facebook Marketplace. I bought cheap bundles of used phones, cleaned them up, resold them. I taught myself how to write product listings that got clicks. In 3 months, I saved up $6,000. Then I used it all to register my LLC, build a basic website, and buy inventory canned goods, household essentials, snacks, personal care items. I rented a tiny 200 square foot storage unit and turned it into my first warehouse. I called the business Quick Cart Local. To attract customers, I ran geo-targeted Facebook ads and offered first-time discounts. I personally packed and delivered every order, sometimes biking across town, with a backpack full of detergent and granola bars. At first it was slow, a couple orders a day, some weeks barely any, but I kept pushing. I refined the website, improved delivery times, introduced reusable packaging. I even included handwritten thank you notes with every bag. Word started to spread. Moms loved the convenience. Elderly customers appreciated not having to walk blocks with groceries. I started getting repeat orders referrals. Within 4 months, I had a loyal base of 150 local customers. But here's the real twist. I was operating in the exact same neighborhood as my parents' old store, just a few blocks away. Their buyer, the man who took over the shop, had kept everything the same prices, same layout, same outdated systems. Meanwhile, QuickCart was evolving. I launched a mobile app. I introduced a subscription plan for free delivery. I partnered with local farms for organic produce and labeled everything with sourcing info. I even hired my first part-time delivery driver, someone I met at the bakery gig. By month 8, I had cleared $30,000 in revenue. It wasn't millions, not yet, but it was mine, and it was working. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up, and the voice on the other end made my stomach twist. Ben. It was my father. I heard you're running some kind of business now. I said nothing. We've been meaning to talk to you, he continued. Things haven't been easy. The new owner, he's struggling. Sales are down. He says people keep talking about this new delivery thing. Is that you still? I stayed silent. Then he said something that floored me. We were wondering if maybe there's a way we could work together. Bring you on board, make you a partner. I almost laughed. Partner. Now they wanted me involved. I took a breath and said calmly, Dad, I offered you 7 years of my life for free. You sold me out. And now you want a partnership. He started stammering. It wasn't personal. Ben, we made a mistake. We see that now. I paused. Thanks, I said, but I already have a business, and I don't need partners. Then I hung up. After the call, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt still, like something inside me had finally settled. But the story wasn't over. Over the next few months, QuickCart doubled its customer base. I expanded my inventory, secured a better storage space, hired 2 more drivers. I even partnered with a software developer to refine the app's backend. The old grocery store. It started losing customers fast. Without innovation or flexibility, it couldn't compete. Rumors spread. The new owner was desperate to sell. Within the year, the shop was shuttered. And my parents. They lost their main source of income. The money they made from the sale ran out fast. Retirement dreams evaporated. The last I heard, they were looking for work part-time shifts at another store. The same kind of work they made me do for free. One day, months later, I was delivering an order to a sweet elderly woman on the block when I saw my parents across the street. They looked tired, worn down, smaller somehow. My dad saw me. Our eyes met. He opened his mouth maybe to say hello, maybe to say sorry. I just nodded. Then I got back in my car and drove off. Not because I hated them, not because I wanted to rub it in, but because I had finally reclaimed something far more important than money or revenge: my self-worth. 6 months after I last saw my parents on that street, I got an email that made me freeze. Subject line: urgent regarding property purchase opportunity. It was from a local real estate broker. At first, I assumed it was just another generic spam email. But when I opened it, I saw the details: small commercial property located on Birch, and 7th recently vacated, ideal for retail storage or mixed use. Previous owners defaulted on terms motivated to sell at reduced price. I blinked. Birch and 7th. That was the address of my parents' old store. I called the agent, pretending to be a curious investor. He told me the previous buyer had gone bankrupt and defaulted. The bank repossessed the property, and now they were trying to liquidate it fast. Price was 30% below market value. I ended the call and just sat there in stunned silence. That store, the place where I spent my entire teenage life working without pay, the place that was promised to me and then ripped away, was back on the market, and I could buy it. It felt surreal. But the numbers didn't lie. QuickCard had grown enough that I had decent credit and enough capital for a down payment. I talked to my business advisor. We ran the math. It was tight but doable. 1 week later, I signed the papers. I became the owner of the very store my parents once promised me, then sold behind my back. But I wasn't interested in reopening it as it was. That store carried ghosts. I had something bigger in mind. I gutted the inside, tore out every dusty shelf, every flickering light, every outdated fixture. I rebuilt the space into a bright modern hybrid hub for QuickCart. Part fulfillment center, part walk-in market, part cafe lounge with Wi-Fi and a few local vendors showcasing sustainable goods. The grand opening was planned for late fall, and to drive buzz, I did something special. I invited every single QuickCart customer, local influencers, small business owners, press outlets. And yes, I even sent a physical invitation to my parents. I didn't expect them to come, but they did. They arrived looking awkward, standing at the edge of the crowd, while people snapped photos and music played. The once familiar store was unrecognizable, vibrant, sleek, bustling with energy. Their eyes darted around the room, unsure of where they fit. I approached them calmly, like I would any guest. My dad opened his mouth first. "This place looks amazing." "You did this." I nodded. "Yeah, from the ground up." My mom looked away. Her eyes were red. "It should have been yours all along." I shrugged. "Now it is." There was a long pause. Then my father said something I'll never forget. "We thought we were doing what was best. We were wrong." I studied them, not with hatred, not even with pity, but with clarity. You know, I said, for years, I worked here thinking it would lead to a future. You sold that future. But what you didn't realize is that by taking it away, you actually set me free. My mom whispered, "We're proud of you, Ben." I smiled gently, but there was a boundary they could feel. A wall that wasn't cruel, just firm. "I didn't build this to make you proud," I said. "I built it because I had to, because you left me no choice." They stayed for about 20 minutes, then quietly slipped out, while the celebration continued. I watched them go. There was no cinematic confrontation, no shouting, no collapse into tears, just the quiet truth. They had built a lie. I had built something real. After that day, I never heard from them again. Not directly, but I did hear whispers from former customers that my parents had moved to a smaller apartment outside the city, that my dad took a night job stocking shelves at a big chain store, that my mom was doing odd jobs at a friend's cafe. It wasn't that I wanted them to suffer, but there was a certain poetic justice in it all. They made me work for free for 7 years. Now, they worked for minimum wage. While I employed 20 people, offered health benefits, and gave high school kids flexible shifts with pay and mentorship. Every time I watched a young employee grow, save up, or learn something meaningful on the job, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of my past and rewriting it. That was the real revenge. Not crushing them, but building something better. And in doing so, proving to myself and to the world that I was never just the family help. I was always meant to lead. I just had to fight to remember it. Some nights, I stay late at the shop after we close. I'll sit by the front window with a cup of coffee, looking out at the street where I used to sweep sidewalks for free, where I once believed loyalty would be enough to earn me a future. It wasn't. But now, I know something better. You can build your own future, even from broken promises. There's a photo I keep in my office. It's old me at 15 standing behind the original store's counter, wearing a too big apron, smiling like I still believed in everything my parents told me. I look at that photo now, not with bitterness, but with compassion. That kid didn't know he was being used, but he also didn't know how powerful he'd become once he let go of waiting for someone else to give him what he deserved and decided to go take it for himself. My story isn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It's about reclaiming worth, about turning betrayal into fuel, about proving, not just to others, but to yourself, that your value is not determined by how others treat you, but by what you choose to build from the ashes. To anyone who's ever felt invisible, underappreciated, or lied to by the people who were supposed to protect you, you don't need their permission to rise. You just need the courage to start walking, even if it's alone. And when you get there, when you've built something with your own hands, your own fire, trust me, that feeling, that's justice.